Okay, looks like we're recording now.
All right, hang on just a minute. All right,
at least I hope so.
All right, very good. Well, let's kick this off. First of all, I'm glad that we have a chance to talk today with Devin Aiken. And so those of you that are viewing this have taken our Ubiquity training, and I often got the question, what's next? It seems like a lot of the people that take our training are excited about learning, and we meet together at that because there is a real thrill to understanding something that is impossible to see, and so we draw analogies from different things, and so I've wanted to continue on in teaching Wi-Fi. And especially in the troubleshooting arena, because it's a point that it seems like that all of you students come to me and say, how can I solve this problem that I have? It's fun to learn the science, but when you go to application, you need some guidance as to how to solve problems. And so I guess, what was it, Devin, 2 years ago, maybe, when you started the wireless adjuster class? Is that right?
Closing in on 2 years. Yeah, it's been way longer than you think. Time is going pretty quickly. So yeah, closing in on 2 years now.
So I should give you a chance to introduce yourself, and let me do that. But just before you do that, let me just say that Devin and I met several years back, and he helped guide me through the Certified Wireless Network Expert classes, and so he helped me to achieve that. He's helped a lot of people do that in the wireless industry, and has a passion for teaching and a passion for bringing the real truth of Jesus Christ to people also. And so I'll let him talk a little bit about that, but we both share that desire to show God's love to other people, not just through day-to-day, but also in the work environment. And so we both enjoy each other's company in that way. And a lot of times we get distracted because of Devin's evangelistic tendency and my desire to learn more. So anyhow, with that, Devin, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing lately and the wireless adjuster class.
So I work for myself for a company called Divergent Dynamics, and we are a Wi-Fi consultancy and training company. So for many years, I've been teaching CWNP classes, and of course, you and I have had touch points on that, and that that has done real well. But over the last couple of years, I've been teaching a lot of wireless adjuster courses, and so we'll talk about that in a second. I also am a full-time student in a university and seminary, working on my master's degree. So it seems like that's a full-time job in addition to my other full-time job of actually making income. So I do a bit of study these days, and and struggle with all the same things that every other college student, writing 20-page papers with 20 scholarly references and things like that. So I spend a lot of time.
That's funny because, and hopefully that's a bit of an inspiration to people. You can see that I've got gray hair and you've got no hair. We're not the typical college students.
I'm 51 years old, and
I've been a life learning, isn't it? It's a life of learning, and if you can train your brain to take on new challenges like that, you can do that for the rest of your life. So anyhow, go ahead.
At 46 years old, I started college, and so I had done built CWNP program and worked for manufacturers and been a systems engineer, a technical marketing engineer, and worked my way up into exec team at various manufacturers. But I really had a calling to do ministry work, and so I had to get my bachelor's degree. Now I'm working on my master's, and then my doctorate is next. And so it's a long road. It's more than a decade of school, but I enjoy it. So, and then working from home because of the restrictions, travel restrictions, and a lot of folks don't travel to work or classes these days. So I've had to do everything online, teaching CWP courses, wireless adjuster courses, doing consulting online. So I had to kind of modify the business a little bit. But what I've realized in the industry is The real lack is an understanding in Wi-Fi. The lack is a failure to understand best practices. What are they? When do you apply them? When do you make exceptions? As well as the troubleshooting aspect of it. So, people come to me all the time and say, hey, should I turn this feature on or off?
Right. Get that a lot.
Yeah, should I, what does this feature do? It's called this in this system, but this other system, it has this other name. So are they the same thing? Do they function the same way? Is it industry standard or is it proprietary? So there's been a big emphasis on what are all these features. There's hundreds of features in an enterprise system. When do we apply them? When do we use them? Turn them on, off, or how do we set them? Like channel width. What is the best channel width? That's a loaded question, obviously. And there's other things like multi-user MIMO. What does it do, and how do we set it? So using scanners, finally, as of the last, call it 3 to 4 years, we've had really good tools. And these good tools are getting even that much better. And we call them Wi-Fi scanners. And they allow us to assess best practices and to do troubleshooting very, very quickly, and to understand the state of play in the Wi-Fi network. How is it configured? Is this best or is this not best? All in one screen. Just poof, it's in your face. Yeah. And then how to filter and how to sort and things like this in these tools makes very quick work. It's like a Swiss Army knife with 1,000 blades, but it's all right there available to you in one screen. So it's a very nice type of tool.
Sure. And so we introduce in the classes, so those that are watching this have seen some of the Wi-Fi scanner capabilities, but we only just show it. And I agree with you that those tools are very good for conceptualizing, because it's hard to understand. We can put things on a whiteboard, but when you have a scan that goes on and you can see directly. So anyhow, we've got the scanners, and so your class helps us understand what we can do with that.
Yeah, the class teaches first, what are the best practices? And there are many, many dozens of them. Let's say probably around 100 of them that we want to focus on. So that's just a ballpark figure. Then we move into how do we use the scanner? And I'm speaking generically of scanners because there's multiple scanners in the market that are quite good. And so we want to use the scanner to understand how to make those assessments. How do we see what the state of each of those parameters is? Is it off or on, or is there multiple settings it could be? And what are those settings? How different settings relate to each other? And so I can even, looking at the wireless, I can even troubleshoot power over Ethernet problems, believe it or not. Without ever looking at the PoE or the Ethernet port, I could see what's going on the Wi-Fi and deduce PoE problems. That's just an example.
Wow. Okay.
We can see when radio chains are deficient, there's less chains powered up than there should be. Security issues, if there's any security holes, any violation of best practice, whether it be having an SSID on both bands or not, depending on if you're dealing with 2, 4, and 5 or 5 and 6 gigahertz. So there's a very with a scanner like this, it's easy to quickly assess the state of play. And then make adjustments. That's why it's called the wireless adjuster, is to make those adjustments to bring it in line with best practice. And I estimate that that's at least 90 to 95% of what networks need in general. Enterprise networks is just they need to be adjusted to best practice. There are exceptions as to when you would violate best practice, but the goal here is to move a dysfunctional network to functional through best practice implementation. And then of course, use those same tools like scanners to troubleshoot. So in the class, we will learn the best practice, we'll learn how to use the scanners, and then we will do labs so that you get familiar with using the scanner to solve problems. And so whether it's troubleshooting, assessing, and making adjustments to best practice and so on.
Very good. Now, how do you think that Ubiquity's equipment would line up with this? I know this is just a generic class, but most of the people that are going to be viewing this have had experience with Ubiquity.
Yeah.
Does it line up well for this class, or what would you say?
It does. Ubiquity has, over the last few years, has become quite feature rich. They began as, more in the outdoor, and then they finally had an indoor, but it was very, SMB, or small medium business class. But over the years, they've moved up into the small medium enterprise. And that is a very competitive market, right? There's a lot of players in that market. The Meraki's and the Ruckuses and the Extremes. There's a lot of players in that same market that they compete with. And of course, if you're familiar with Ubiquiti, speaking to the listeners, they have a very good cost. The ROI there is very good, and the feature richness for what you're paying is pretty extraordinary. So the scanner is not going to be just looking at the basics of what is your channel width and things like the basics. But with the Ubiquiti system, they've got enough features now, that you need the scanner to be able to assess what state are all these settings in. So it's not so simple anymore with Ubiquiti as it would be like a Netgear, home router. It's not that class. It's now an enterprise class system. And for that reason, you need enterprise class best practice assessment and troubleshooting tools. Whereas the scanner is the first line of, I won't say defense, it's the first line of troubleshooting and best practice assessment remediation. So, it's the tool that takes the first 90+% of all your time. And then the really nice, well, not nice, that's the wrong word, the really expensive and complicated tools, that's the last 10%. And there's there's a lot of great tools out there. Don't get me wrong. The Ekahau's and the air magnets and the comm views and tamographs. There's just so many great tools out there, but those all collectively are the last 10% of troubleshooting and best practice assessment at the most. The scanner is the first 90%. So you spend most of your time in the scanner. So it's important to learn what it does and how it works, how to use it.
I'd love to be able to see the guys that are the Ubiquiti experts become proficient in Wi-Fi scanning and be able to troubleshoot their networks, and become more professional in their jobs. And you kind of hit on this, and I want to talk about this. So as a professional, I want to talk about Mac and Windows and your class. And I would say that if you're serious about this job, if you're supporting an enterprise network, that you should have a Mac and you should be running Wi-Fi Explorer Pro. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I will supplement that. I think it's an accurate statement. So I'm a huge fan, excuse me, huge fan of Mac tools. Adrian Granados has a tremendous set at intuitivebits.com, tremendous set of tools for the Mac, Wi-Fi Signal, Wi-Fi Explorer Pro 3, and so many more. So those are some of the best tools in the industry, no doubt about that. So those are the things I use myself. We use those in class as well, in the wireless adjuster class. But is that to say that there's no tools for Windows? So this is the kind of supplementing what you said. No, it's not to say that at all. Access Agility has Wi-Fi scanner for Windows. It's very, very good. It's under constant development and increasing feature sets. It's wonderful. You've got Wi-Fi Pro Engineer level. So they got a light version, and in-app, you can expand that out to the Pro Engineer, and it's for Windows as well, by Tetabyte. That's the company makes that. So there are good scanners for Windows, very good scanners. My personal preference is Wi-Fi Pro 3 because I'm a Mac user and because it's the most advanced tool in that market as far as feature richness, capabilities, things like this, filtering and sorting and colorization and customization. It's just super feature rich. But that, again, it's not to say the others are not good. They are. So I would agree with your assessment, but add that not having a Mac and those tools is not a deal killer for attending the class or doing the work.
Okay, good. Well, I know people worry about that. It seems like, if you're going to get into this business and you want to support your company, your company's Wi-Fi network, that you probably should drop the, it's not $1,500 for a MacBook you could get in. And
right. And if you're doing scanning, you don't need an expensive MacBook. You don't need some.
Okay, that's a good point. That is a good point.
Cheap, just the cheapest low end. In fact, a lot of times what I will do, this is just me, I will go to eBay and buy a certified refurb with a 3-year warranty that's going to cost around $1,000 to $1,100 fully loaded, and I'll buy a 2015 model. The 15s were great. Not a big fan of the 17s, 18s. They were terrible. I have some and several.
I noticed a caveat on your site. If you have a 2018 MacBook
the 18
Pro,
is awful. But the 15s were probably the best. That's what I'm using right at this moment for this call is a 15.
By the way,
it's bulletproof. It just, you could throw it off a cliff and dust it off and it'd be fine. And so you can buy these for, just over $1,000. If you want to get a 15-inch, so you have a big screen, might cost another $100, but that's a really nice way to do scanning with a great laptop for very cheap with a warranty and all that kind of stuff. Just throwing that out there.
Okay, good. Well, all right. So getting set for the class now. You have 2 classes on your calendar, right? The adjuster 1 and adjuster 2. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So the only ones that are currently on the schedule are the wireless adjuster level 2. And the reason that there is a level 1 at all, that we even talk about level 1, is when we did the beta courses year and a half, 2 years ago, however long it's been, I forget. But all the beta folks that were invited were CWNEs or pretty close to it. In other words, the most advanced folks in the industry. These are folks that have been doing Wi-Fi for 1 to 2 decades at least and have a lot of broad experience. They loved the class. They gave me tremendously good feedback. But the one suggestion that they said is really needed is they said this class is for someone who has at least a CWNA level of knowledge. They don't have to have the certification, of course, but that level of knowledge. So at least a kind of broad set of, if I say, what is an SSID, you would know that. If I said, what's the difference between, a PSK and 802.1x with EAP? What is the general difference of that? Just the basic knowledge of Wi-Fi is needed for this course. But we need, their feedback was, we need a course that is lower level than this. And I was like, for who? And their main audience that they were suggesting was for folks like field engineers. Let's say that you worked for a carrier like an AT&T, a Verizon, something like that, and you were going into homes installing Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi router, or a small business, Wi-Fi routers, things like this. You want to make sure everything is configured properly. Well, the set of best practices in that SOHO market or small medium business market is so much less that you don't need to learn best practices for 100 features and all these advanced features of scanners. You need the basics. And so they're probably not going to have a lot of background. A lot of these folks, they have to know a little bit of Ethernet, a little bit of Wi-Fi, and they have to know their own products, but they're in and out and they're gone. And they get called back in to troubleshoot, and they need to know, is the SSID being announced? What channel width is, what channel is it on, and so on, just the simple stuff. And to teach a class like this with some labs is a little bit lower level, but there's a huge audience for it. However, the word is not yet out enough, advertising enough for the wireless adjuster program for the big carriers to have picked up on this, that they really need to train those folks. So I'm kind of leaving this level 1 as a future thing. I could build this course in a couple of weeks because what I would do is take the level 2 and scale it down, take some of the labs out, add some different labs, take some of the best practice, a lot of the best practices out, and focus on just the basics for that audience. But to date, I haven't had any, only a couple of requests for it and nothing sizable. So I expect at some point, some large company with, hundreds of engineers is going to call and say, we need all these folks trained on, Wi-Fi best practice assessment and troubleshooting at a low level. So I want to leave that. I agree with the CWNEs in that feedback. So I want to leave that level 1 as a future option, but I don't expect to have a level 3. So if anything, I can turn the level 2 into a little more advanced if necessary. I can add, more complicated material and still have that level 1 for the lower stuff. So I see the level 1, level 2 being the final state of play for the certification. But right now, only the level 2 is offered.
So I was in that group, and I remember that discussion, it was, we were doing is fast-paced. This class is a fast-paced class.
There.
You jam a lot into it, and it's very rich. And so I understand that there needs to be probably some understanding before you go, but I want to assure my students that if you've gone through our 2-day ubiquity training, that you're going to have a basis for being able to put those best practices into place. Now, you may not know the best practices in those 2 days, but you're going to be familiar with the concepts. And then especially if you went to the class and then you went out and deployed, you're going to know things like, creating a channel reuse plan and what what a power spectrum density looks like, things like that. So, you're going to be challenged by this class. I would say to any prospective students, it's going to be a challenge, but it's a challenge you should take on. And I think that if you don't think you need, I would say, you don't need a precursor to get into this class and learn a lot. It's going to be a valuable 2-day class.
Yeah, I think your audience is well primed to come to the wireless adjuster course. That's kind of discussion you and I have had behind the scenes is your audience has now the training and hopefully some hands-on that gets them perfectly prepared to learn what are the best practices in the enterprise, when to violate them and when not to violate them, how to get the most performance out of your system, which features turn on and off and things like this, and then how to troubleshoot with the same tool that you're assessing best practices with, very quickly. Not, what I tell my students on day one is I want to teach you how to find a needle in a haystack in seconds and not in hours or days. I want you to go, no, 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 yes, yes, no, no. Oh, there it is right there. There's the problem. And so, and that's what a scanner in general gives you, is a big screen full of data points, and that you can sort and filter and organize until the problem child pops out at you. Yep, there's your problem right there.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, I think that should be enough to at least get people to understand what we're trying to do together. For those that are going to receive an email on this, you'll see our website now has the wireless adjuster listed on it, and you can sign up that way. I know Devin's very open, easy to contact, and there's no problem getting with him directly, but you can get to that class through the links that are coming in this email and from our website, and also from Devin.
Yeah, I would strongly encourage your students to go to Wi-Fi U and sign up through your website there, so that how this is working your students, whether they're interested or not. We'd like to be able to understand those demographics, and so highly encourage you to go directly to the Wi-Fi U website and sign up there.
Thanks, Devin. We do want to build a community of knowledgeable experts that we can converse with, and that we can solve the problems of Wi-Fi with heading into the future. Awesome. So, all right.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Eric, and the helping me get the word out. And it's always wonderful to talk to you, brother.
All right. Thanks, Devin.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.